us free.
Your Honor, please instruct the defendant that he cannot disrupt these proceedings with such outbursts.
Give us free!
If we are to have any semblance of order in this country,
Give us free!
Peace, unity, and welcome my conscious and unconscious family and friends. This is the all-new Black Village Community Podcast, and I am truly your host of the show, JC, aka Afro Black, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut, without any fear, as I use my mic as a spear to chucker you with liberated truth. I am your host and your native soldier in the struggle. My purpose and mission for this show is first to enlighten, inform, and engage. And I want to engage with all who claim to know the truth. All truth seekers and my native family, I welcome you. This show is dedicated to all our indigenous native ancestors and to all those who've carried the mantle of truth, and to every person with the ability to throw off the chains of comfortable habit and unwarranted assumption and move in a new, liberated direction that is guided by truth and observational evidence, no matter where that direction may lead you. My main objective and purpose here is freedom, mind, soul, and spirit. That being said, welcome to the Black Village Community Podcast, and much love from our great universal goddess and mother of all, living here and above.
AC in the house.
We are the Halusa Nation. Our DNA is of earth and sky. Confronted by the Alai Nation, Alien Nation, the subjects and the citizens see the material religions through trauma and numb. Nothing is related. All the things of the earth and in the sky have energy to be exploited. Even themselves, mining their spirits into souls sold. Into nothing is sacred, not even their self. The Alai Nation, Alien Nation.
Emergency on planet Earth. The currency is murder, you a man of worth. They say the day is coming, drumming that you can't reverse. Watch the banner burn before the cannon burst. Don't chase an illusion, the nation halusa. Hallelujah, taste of the future, the people, the shower, the pistol, the coward, the tricks and the shooter. Lonely martyrs, magic carpets, dirty blankets, Coca-Cola, soul controller, holy waters. Middle East mode, sand glorious. Cheat code in Babylonian, the Orient. My superhero got the people power. Yasin and Yasin, you should heed the hour.
With you and living kings, I mean it, I mean. I mean it, I mean. Yasin and Yasin in the R.E.B. I mean it, I mean. Original nation, with one solid, I mean. I mean it, I mean. Straight jacket, come clean, Yasin and Yasin in the R.E.B. Original nation, with one solid, with true and
Ride and roll. Soldier for life for sure.
Hey, this is JC, aka Afro Black, and I am here with you for another delicious Black Sunday to drop nothing but the raw and uncut here on the Black Village Community Podcast. And I am here for another delicious Black Sunday to enjoy conscious information, conscious history, conscious identity with my indigenous cultural conscious family and those who are searching for truth. You feel me? That's what I do here at the Black Village. This is JC, aka Afro Black, and I am here every Sunday as much as I can be, unless there's some technical difficulties that get in the way, and that does happen. But I'm here today to drop the raw and uncut. So on that note, today is a continuation. We are continuing last week's subject matter, which is Pan-Africanism and the conscious movement, a racial classification or a cultural regeneration. Part 2. This is a conclusion, a part 2. Pan-Africanism and the conscious movement, a racial reclassification or a cultural regeneration. We are going to relive last week's podcast and continue to verberate on that. At least I'm going to verberate on it. I'm going to clarify and translate and do as much as I can to share conscious truth out of what we do have and what we do get in search of true cultural identity, which is North American indigenous identity. People here at the Black Village Community Podcast. So let me play my laid back music, my verberation music, the music I use to continue this subject matter. So let me do it like that right there. As you heard in the intro of the show, you heard me play that indigenous Native American hip-hop electro beat group, which is called A Tribe Called Red. And so this is also an instrumental by A Tribe Called Red. And that what you heard in the intro was A Tribe Called Red with brother Yasin Bey, a.k.a. Mos Def, rapping over that. But Big Black Bear. That was Big Black Bear and brother Yasin Bey. So on that note, we will continue this important subject matter. I'm going to say it again. Important subject matter. And I'm going to tell you why this subject matter is so important. This subject matter is so important because the web of delusion. And I'm going to tell you what web of delusion. The web of delusion that when you read, if anybody has read, and I know there's many black folks out there, and especially those who are African conscious black people who have read the Willie Lynch letters. And then there's a part in the Willie Lynch letters where it talks about a web of delusion, a vacuum that's like a vacuum that intertwines on itself to keep black people from knowing their true identity. Well, my question, is Pan-Africanism a part of that web? Well, I wonder, due to the research that I've done and the information that I found and some of the things that I'm hearing. Now, don't get it twisted, my people, because African culture, African identity, African history, African tradition, African principles are beautiful. And they're beautiful. They're in balance with they're in balance with life, in balance with nature, in balance with spirituality. So African consciousness is a beautiful thing, but it is rooted to the African and rooted to the African people. Well, our people over here in North America, our indigenous ancestors here in North America also were rooted in their culture, in their principles, in their truths of knowledge, which coincides with African, because the African and the indigenous North Paleo Black indigenous woman and man were in tune with nature. You feel me? So my question is, it seems like to me what has happened over the years was the very thing that the white agenda and white supremacy wanted to happen. And what was that? To reverse the identity of black indigenous people here in North America with an African identity. What was the purpose of that? Well, what was the purpose of the white man being over here in North America in the first place? Remember, I told you people last week, I explained to my conscious community, we have to keep three things in mind when it comes to colonization. What is those three things? Purpose, power, and politics. Most important thing to the white man, because purpose keeps him on his agenda, keeps him focused on his agenda. That's what purpose do. Power gains him and gets him exactly what he's purposed to get and to gain. And politics lock it in with his game and with his political game that he's been playing, his chessboard. He's controlling the chessboard with his politics. So people, we have to look at this. What will be the gain? The gain of him gaining and keeping control without any sweat on his back, any sweat on his brow, of indigenous people raising up, coming together, and seeking political power, seeking control, sharing control. That's what's going on, people. So I still got some audio cache from last week. You feel me? Reason why I'm using Brother Umar is because Brother Umar is one of the largest voices out there today. You know, back in the 80s and the 90s, you had Brother Ben Yohanan, Pan-Africanists. You had a lot of Pan-Africanists in the 80s and in the 90s. You know, brother, and I honor, may he rest in peace, Brother Ben, Dr. Ben Yohanan, as well as Dr. John Henry Clark and Dr. Theo Valentine and Dr. Amos Wilson. And these brothers are Pan-Africanists, but see, you know what? They did not know any better. Because if they knew better, they wouldn't have I would like to believe that their hearts would have been in the right place, and that they would have understood that there was more than just those of African descent who were here. That the majority of black Americans here in North America, the majority of black people whose roots go all the way past slavery, even to slavery in this country, were indigenous black Americans, and that they were connected to the indigenous original people of North America.
Our DNA is of earth and sky.
On that note, let me continue this podcast. And I also see, I believe I got my brother here sitting here in the conference room. What's happening, my brother? I appreciate you joining here, the Black Village. What's happening, my brother? What's happening, my brother? Are you listening in? Or you got anything questions you want to raise in reference to this subject matter? Even last week's subject matter, I believe you joined me on, this is a continuation from last week's, which is Pan-Africanism and the conscious movement, a racial reclassification, or a cultural regeneration. You tell me.
Well, I really don't have anything to say at this moment. Me and my daughter, we're just listening.
Okay. If you have anything you want to say, please, I'm going to leave the mic open, but I'm going to continue the subject matter, and I'm going to continue with Brother Umar. You know, because if anybody's listened to last week's podcast, they should remember Brother Umar making a slip up by contradicting himself by saying that Pan-Africanism is not about color, but it is about African identity, and it's about keeping in tune with making African identity the first thing in your life, no matter where you at, no matter who you are, making African identity the first. But when the brother in Jesse Peterson's show that he was on asked him, well, could a person from South Africa, could a white person from South Africa be a part of the Pan-African movement? Brother Umar said no. But that's a contradictory in his statement when he said that it was not about ethnicity. Okay, so, you know, it is about, Pan-Africanism is about ethnicity. It was rooted in ethnicity, and it was rooted in African identity. So, I got some articles I want to read. I want to point out, and I also want to urge the conscious community to read one of the founders of Pan-Africanism, which is Martin Martin Robeson Delaney, who put out a pamphlet in 1852 titled "The Condition, Elevation, Immigration, and Destiny of the Colored People of the United States." And so to understand and to comprehend, and he was, Martin Robeson Delaney was one of the founding members of African Pan-Africanism in the United States. He was the one that came together with two other brothers, and those two other brothers that he came together with, one was called Alexander Cromwell, and the other brother that he got together with, let me see, Alexander Cromwell, who was a minister in the Catholic Church, I believe, and Edward Wilmot Blyden. Edward Wilmot Blyden. Okay, but the reason why I'm focusing on Martin Delaney is because Martin Delaney put out a pamphlet in 1852. And as I told you, the title of that pamphlet is "The Condition, Elevation, Immigration, and Destiny of the Colored People of the United States." Very important pamphlet to understand the mindset of those house Negroes who was behind the Back to Africa scheme that that Brother Frederick Douglass talked about in his speech of 1894. Okay? So it's very important. You have to read this. Now, I can read some parts out of this, but right now what I would like to do, I would like to play Brother Umar to continue this podcast topic, because Brother Umar is the main feature and face of Pan-Africanism today, you know, in the year 2000s. He's the face of Pan-Africanism here in the U.S. He's the one that's doing the interviews and going to schools and talking and speaking and talking about black people elevating themselves out of their economic situation. He's the mouth of Pan-Africanism today. And so I'm going to go from the past to the present, from the present to the past. But right now, I'm going to play this audio cast and by Brother Umar on the Jesse Patterson Show, and we shall continue from there. Matter of fact, before I play that, I'm going to play, as always, Brother Nasir from Turtle Gang, and then I'll play the interview with Brother Umar. The reason why I told you, every time I talk about this, I'm going to refer to this one little clip by Turtle Gang and how he talks about the connection between the reservations that we know about today and the ghettos, which are modern day reservations for the black indigenous people of today. So, and we'll be back in just a few seconds.
You go to a reservation, you see poverty, you see churches, and you see liquor stores. When you go to any hood, you see poverty, you see churches, and you see liquor stores. So what make you think you're not on a reservation? Right? So all these achievements that we ascribe to African Americans, these are achievements by Native Americans who had to take on the identity of being African American because they was hanging us. But you think they was hanging people because they was Africans. Africans just want to go home. Nigga from here want to take his shit over. But you think they was hanging people because they was Africans. Africans just want to go home. Nigga from here want to take his shit over.
In America, this doesn't include black Americans who were born in this country. We're not a part of that stuff, right? Because we are Americans. But how?
No, sir.
But how is that?
No,
I mean, for example, I was born in America, down in Alabama, and I'm 100% American. So I wouldn't be a part of this African stuff, right?
No, that's totally incorrect. Pan-Africanism as a philosophy was actually born in the Western Hemisphere. Pan-Africanism came from the Americas. It came from the Caribbean and went to Africa. So believe it or not, ironically, it was created by quote-unquote American Africans. And so when we talk about Pan-Africanism, as I said earlier in the definition, it includes all African people, wherever we may live. That's the entire purpose of the philosophy, is to make African people understand that regardless of where you may be, you're still African. There's European Jews all over the planet, but there's still European Jews.
But I'm not African, though. I don't feel like an African. I don't think like an African. I don't look like an African.
Well, that's because of
I am 100%. I am 100% American.
There you go. That was the track that I played last week. So I'm playing that just to get us on point with our discussion today. Okay, so as you heard Brother Umar said, no matter where you at, no matter who you are, you're African. That's a part of the agenda. That's a part of the principle, part of the concept, and a part of the tenet of Pan-Africanism, to spread African identity. Now, that's okay for those who are African. That's okay for those who are aware of their African descent. But what about those who are not African but look African? And the question is, what is an African look? Because here in North America, you got people who don't look African and those who do. But yet at the same time, look like they're still a part of the same melanated family. Mind you what I just said. You got those here in North America who don't look African, but look related in the essence, at least to the degree of being a melanated people. Prime example, you got people in Fiji, you got people in Hawaii, in the Samoan Islands, in Australia, in Cuba, in the Dominican Republic. Look just like me, look just like my neighbor, look like somebody in my family, in your family. But these people are not African. See, what Pan-Africanism is superseding or attempting to supersede is cultural connection. You have to have a cultural, a part of being a part of an ethnic group is also sharing the same cultural connection. See, and this is the reason why I question the agenda of Pan-Africanism. Because why would you tell somebody who tells you I am not African, why would you tell them yes you are? This person tells you I have no connection with Africa, I have no history with Africa, no family in Africa, no friends in Africa, none of my family have a connection to Africa. So why would somebody like Dr. Umar turn right around and tell that person, yes, you do. You have a connection. Yes, you do. You just don't know it. And well, wouldn't the question be, well, brother, let me maybe help you comprehend how you might have a connection to Africa, rather than telling the brother that he does have a connection with Africa just because he's a melanated man, just because he's melanated, you're going to tell the brother what his cultural connection is? This is my problem with Pan-Africanism, because it's dogmatic. And in some levels, of Pan-Africanism, it is just as dogmatic as white supremacy. And don't get it twisted, people. It's not on the same level as white supremacy, but at the same time, I'm saying that it's on the same levels in the essence of being dogmatic about its ideology. It dictates. See, a true people don't dictate over another who another is or who another might be. We share. So I got some more that I want to play of Dr. Umar before I read any documentation that I have. So let me play this and we shall continue from there.
No, that's totally incorrect. Pan-Africanism as a philosophy was actually born in the Western Hemisphere. Pan-Africanism came from the Americas. It came from the Caribbean and went to Africa. So believe it or not, ironically, it was created by quote-unquote American Africans. And so when we talk about Pan-Africanism, as I said earlier in the definition, it includes all African people, wherever we may live. That's the entire purpose of the philosophy, is to make African people understand that regardless of where you may be, you're still African. This European Jews all over the planet, but there's still European Jews.
But I'm not African, though. I don't feel like an African. I don't think like an African. I don't look like an African.
Well, that's because of
I am
post-traumatic
100%. I am 100% American.
If you choose to identify politically as an American,
not politically, I am an American.
Okay, well, allow me to make my statement. If you choose to psychologically and politically identify as an American, then so be it. But genetically and biologically, you may be African.
No, I'm not.
Biological, well, it's okay to be in denial. Most Africans are. You have to understand we suffer from a collective psychosis.
Is this
and it sounds like that you might be suffering from that yourself.
Is this like that stuff that Louis Farrakhan and Jeremiah Wright Jr. Obama's preaching, talk about this black liberation, let me just ask, this black liberation stuff? That's what this is all about.
Well, let me clarify. I respect Minister Farrakhan and Reverend Wright, but I'm not followers of either. I think they've done some good things, but neither of them are Pan-African. And I think to get the most accurate representation of what they stand for, you would probably need to speak with one of Minister Farrakhan's ministers. He has several who are more than capable of answering those questions. I wouldn't want to speak for what he actually stands for. I'm a Pan-Africanist. He's not.
Okay, there you go. Again, as you heard Brother Umar try to tell a brother, he had, in so many words, he's suffering from a psychological issue. He's in denial. That's what he's saying in so many words, brother. You suffering from a psychological mental disorder of denial. You know what? All black people and all people to some degree, okay, even white folks, are suffering from some level of psychosis or psychological disorder or social disorder. We all are suffering from something, especially black people. Black people know this, and other people know this more than anything, that black people suffer from some levels of social disorder, psychological disorder, or whatever it might be. But the question stands is that Brother Umar should have showed the brother, should have opened up his mouth to explain to the brother what was the connection. I'm gonna tell you, I know some of the connections that Pan-Africanists use to justify their agenda, to justify their ideology, to justify their dogma. They go from believing that the transatlantic slave trade was the largest slave trade in the entire world to using what they believe is science, the validity of science today, to validify by saying that Africans are the fathers and mothers of humanity, to using even the ideology and the theory of Pangea. Okay, they use all these things to justify. Now the question is, what is the purpose of this? There is a political means. Okay, we know one of the purposes is to spread Pan-African ideology, to reach out to who they call all those people who are around the world due to slavery, regardless of where you at, who you are, what your complexion is. If you're connected to the diaspora, you are part of the Pan-African family. This is what they believe. This is what they teach. And as he said, you heard Brother Umar say it started in the West Indies, and that's true. That's true. Now, Martin Delaney, who I said, I'm telling my conscious community, you should read his pamphlet that he wrote. Martin Delaney wrote this pamphlet, and I quoted the pamphlet, which he wrote in 1852, The Condition and Elevation of Immigration and Destiny of the Colored People of the United States. But he had two other friends. These were three educated brothers who put together the floor mat and the foundation of Pan-Africanism, which spread to Africa and bloomed in Africa and was needed in Africa, just like the indigenous black people of America really needed some strength and some encouragement to bring them together as a people after all that they had been through, fighting for their humanity, fighting for their land. Okay? So, but the question is, okay, again, he said that it started in the West Indies. So actually, in actuality, Pan-Africanism did not start in North America. but it did start in the Americas. Okay, the two, other than Martin Delany, okay, Alexander Cromwell, who was born March 3rd, 1819, and died in 1898. Alexander Cromwell was from the West Indies. Let me read a little bit about his bio right here. Cromwell, born the son of an African prince and a free mother. That's important. A free mother, okay? Just like Martin Delany. Martin Delany, the same thing. Martin Delany was an African American abolitionist, the first African American field officer in the U.S. Army, one of the earliest African Americans to encourage a return to Africa. Delany was born in Charlestown, Virginia, now West Virginia, to a slave father and a free mother. That's important to remember. A free mother, a black woman being free during slavery. Now you got to remember, slavery was predicated on the fact that if your mama was a slave, her children were slave, and all her children's children and so forth would be slaves. How could they be born to free mothers? Huh? And I want you to know, when you read about the life story of Martin Delany, Alexander Cromwell, and Wilmot Blyton, the founders of Pan-Africanism, you can't find no information on their mothers. The question is, their fathers were slaves, but their mothers were free. I got some suspect of what's going on right here, of why their mothers were considered free. Now, Alexander Cromwell, back to Alexander Cromwell. Alexander Cromwell, born the son of an African prince and a free mother, attended an interracial school at Canaan NH and an Institute of Whitesboro, New York, okay, which was run by an abolitionist and combined manual labor and the classical curriculum. Denied an admission to the General Theological Seminary of the Episcopal Church in 1839 because of his race. Cromwell studied theology privately and became the Episcopalian minister in 1844. He journeyed to England in about 1848 to raise funds for a church for poor blacks, and soon thereafter began a course of study at Queen's College, Cambridge, in 1853. Upon graduation, Cromwell went to Liberia as a missionary. He spent the next 20 years there as a parish rector professor of intellectual moral science in Liberia College. He became a citizen of the new republic and a strong proponent of Liberian nationalism. Throughout his life, he would continue to urge the Christianization and civilization of Africa by skilled, educated blacks from all over the world. Okay? That was Cromwell, Alexander Cromwell, one of the fathers of Pan-Africanism. As you just heard me read, he spent 20 years of his life in Liberia. And if you read Cromwell's life story, you'll find out why he spent 20 years in Liberia, because he was setting up the framework for what became the so-called home for those who wanted to go back to Africa, as they were urging black folks in North America to go live in Africa, calling it their home. Now, let's go down here to Edward Wilmot Blyton. August 13, 1832. He died February 7th, 1912. The father of Pan-Africanism was an educator. This is Edward Wilmot Blyton. Okay, he's considered the father of Pan-Africanism. Was an educator, writer, diplomat, politician, primarily in Liberia. Born in the West Indies, he joined the free blacks immigrant to the region of the United States. He was also taught for 5 years in the British West African colony of Sierra Leone in the early 20th century. His writings on Pan-Africanism were influential in both colonies, which were started during the slavery years of the resettlement of free blacks from the United States and Great Britain. See, he was a part of that scheme. His writings attracted attention in sponsoring countries, as well as he felt that Zionism was a model for what he called Ethiopianism, and that African Americans could return to Africa and redeem it. He believed political independence to be a prerequisite for economic independence, and argued that Africans must counter the neo-colonial policies of former colonial forces. Now, as I said, Pan-Africanism is a beautiful thing for Africans. But the game that's been played on black people here in North America, and sad to tell everybody, and I know a lot of my indigenous conscious people know this, but you know what? It's a lot of our family members. It's a lot of our family members who don't know, because our great grandparents and our grandparents did not do a good job at disseminating our history to us. Well, why would it? How could they? When most of our grandparents and great-grandparents are children of slaves. And on the plantation, remember, the Willie Lynch indoctrination, the Willie Lynch system was a 24-hour, 365 days a year perpetual system on the plantation. And a part of that was you were not allowed to teach your children. You were not allowed to give your kids cultural names from their tribe. You were not allowed to practice your cultural spirituality. You had to, the slave master made sure that the slaves on the plantation were practicing Christianity, or at least appeared to be participating in Sunday school. The plantation made sure that the sisters, the women, the indigenous black women, the indigenous Indian black sisters were not allowed to practice any of their customary practices that the women knew. But you know what? Through all this degradation that the white man tried to strip our people of our indigenous cultural connection to our people here in North America, fragments of the past, fragments of our indigenous cultural connection still stayed and still resonated in our family. And this is the reason why most black people, either they were told or they know from a grandmother, from an auntie, or from their mother who they are. They know that they had a grandparent or an auntie or an uncle who was Native American. The sad thing about it is that most black people, not all, but a lot of black people only have one piece of their puzzle, or a part of a puzzle. Some black people ain't got a piece of the puzzle of their past at all. They don't know anything of their native culture or their native connection to native people in North America. So this is we as a black people, we have to seek the truth. We have to look for truth. We have to look for cultural truth. We cannot allow this system to tell us who we are. We cannot allow house niggas or house Negroes who are working with the white man's agenda, rather if it's ignorantly or not ignorantly, to tell us who we are. You feel me, people? So let me also tell you that these three men, Martin Delany, Alexander Cromwell, and Edward Wilmot Blyton, who came together and created Pan-African ideology, got together every year with other black intellectual thinkers. Now, mind you, these are black men who are most likely African or half African, as you just heard me read about Martin Delany, father being African, but his mother is a free woman. That let me know that she's an indigenous black woman from this country. I've said it before. What these white devils did is that they brought African men over here to mate with the indigenous women on the plantation. These Africans did not come to plantations with no people already on it. In 1626, when they brought Africans here, the first Africans who came to North America, which came to Jamestown, Virginia, and came to that little town, I believe that little town called, a little town in Virginia which was a docking where a lot of the import-export came into Virginia. And only 20 slaves came in 1626. Only 17 got off the ship. But the height of bringing Africans to North America did not happen until around the middle of the 19th century. Between 1840 1830 is when they started bringing more and more Africans to North America. But as I stated, 90% of the gender of the Africans who came to North America, 90% of the gender were men. So who you think they were going to mate those men with on plantations? Because they weren't going to Africa stealing 400,000 African women. Because according to the new study of how many Africans came to North America from 1626 to the last African shipment, which was in 1887, was only under 400,000. Okay? Under 400,000 Africans came to North America in 1626. The plantation began in North America around 1530, when plantations started popping up all over North America due to Spanish settlements. You gotta remember, people, if you want to know when the white man came here to North America, the white men did not come here to North America and settle and create colonies until between 1586 and 1587. The year is 1586, 1587, when the white man made the deal with the Spanish to take over most of the Spanish colonies, which they took over most of the Spanish plantations on top of building more plantations. And these colonies and plantations were built by indigenous native slaves, black Indians. Do your research, people. Do your research. Do your research on Hernando de Soto. Huh? Do your research. The first European who settled and set foot on North American shores and built the first colony and the first plantation. Hernando de Soto. So back to my point again. As I was stating, those three men, Alexander Cromwell, Martin Delany, or Martin Robeson Delaney, as well as Edward Wilmot Blyton. Okay, those three brothers would meet every so often. Okay, they would meet with African leaders in Africa and talk about their plan to spread this new ideology of Pan-Africanism and to make black people in North America, the indigenous black people that were enslaved, to get them to embrace the ideology of being African. Even though black folks in America knew they weren't African, even the ones that were enslaved and were brainwashed, because the ones that were enslaved and brainwashed, they were told that they were colored or black or Negro. You feel me? So I got an article right here. This article is called The Pan-African Congress from 1900 to 1945. And I want you to know, the Pan-African Congress that was developed in South Africa came out of the Pan-African movement that Martin Delany, Alexander Cromwell, and Edward Blyton had together. Okay, but they met with a brother, another educated brother from Africa, to help them put together the first meeting. These brothers put together the first meeting. Matter of fact, let me read this right here. Let me read this to tell you what I'm talking about. Okay. Let me start right here. Okay. Let me read this right here. This is taken from Rutgers University. This is an article that was written, or might I call this Well, no, let me read this. It's called one of the fathers of Pan-Africanism, how it spread from the West or West Indies or from the Americas into Africa. Okay, which started February, which was handed to an educated brother in Africa by the name of Henry Sylvester Williams, February 15th, 1869. Was born 1869, March 26, died 1911. Okay, he was a Trinidadian lawyer, counselor, writer, most noted for his involvement in Pan-African movement. As a young man, he went to North America to further his education, subsequently to Britain, where in 1897 he formed an African association to challenge the paternalism, racism, and imperialism, the wholly and in part in Britain colonies and other places, especially in Africa, by circulating an accurate information on all subjects affecting their rights and privileges as subjects of the British Empire. So, like I told you, now I want you to know that this brother right here, Henry Sylvester Williams, okay, he knew of Martin Delany, he knew of Alexander Cromwell, and also Edward Wilmot Blyton, who started Pan-Africanism in North America, or in the West Indies that spread to North America into Africa. They all knew each other. These brothers knew each other. And they was working together with abolitionist people because they were a part of the abolitionist movement in the first place. Okay? The abolitionist movement in Britain, the abolitionist movement in North America, and the abolitionist movement that has spread to Africa. Okay? My problem with all this, okay, is the fact that the indigenous black men and women of North America has totally been erased out of the equation. Because it looks like to me that the African was just concerned about in Africa, which rightfully so, concerned about his own political plight and his relationship and operations with the white man. Rightfully so. But black folks here in North America was willing to sell out. Not all black people, because Frederick Douglass did not sell out. Frederick Douglass refused to give in. Frederick Douglass saw what was going on. In his speech of 1894, Frederick Douglass knew it. Let me read this paragraph by Frederick Douglass from the speech of 1894, as I read last week. The bad thing about it is that it has of late, owing to persecution, the bad thing about it is that has of late, owing to persecution, begun to advocate by colored men of knowledge, the ability and learning, and every little while some white statesmen become its advocate. Those gentlemen will doubtlessly have their opinion of me. I certainly have mine of them. My opinion is that if they are sensible, they are insincere. And if they are sincere, they are not sensible. They know, or they ought to know, that it will take more money than the cost of the late war to transport even one half of the colored people of the United States to Africa, whether internationally or not. They are, as I think, simply trifling with an afflicted people. They urge them to look to relief where they ought to know that relief is impossible. The only excuse they make is that the measure that there is no hope for the Negro here, and that the colored people in America owe something to Africa. So Frederick Douglass knew what these house Negroes were trying to do. Now this was written in 1894. Mind you, most of the information that you'll find on the operations of Martin Delany or Alexander Cromwell goes all the way to the early 1800s to the mid 1800s. So by 1894, Frederick Douglass, he said he couldn't, enough was enough. He had to say something. He saw how these fools were trying to brainwash black people here in America and tried to get them, as I told you also, that got to take into consideration also the Naturalization Act. The Naturalization Act which came into play right after 1865, when black people were so-called emancipated. And mind you, the Emancipation Proclamation did not free all black people, because black people were already free under the 13th and the 14th Amendment. The Emancipation Proclamation was put together because of the states that were seceding from the Union, refusing to let go of their slaves. That's what the Emancipation Proclamation was drawn up for. Mind you that even though the 14th and 13th Amendment freed black people from slavery, they still were not considered citizens. And this is what the Naturalization Act of 1865 was all about. The Naturalization Act. And a part of the Naturalization Act, you could not become a citizen and be black unless you accepted the fact that you was considered an African American. This is the political game, people. Remember I tell you, these white people who have lied to us about our culture, our history, our connection with the indigenous people of America, the indigenous Native American people of America, the indigenous Black American, the original people, first people of what they call the first people of Turtle Island. See, this place was not called North America by the indigenous people. This continent that we call America, its original name from its original people was called Turtle Island. You feel me? And those original people look just like me, look just like any other black American I know in America. And I'm not talking about Africans from Africa. I'm talking about black folks in North America, like the ones in my family, my friends, my neighbors, the ones in my neighborhood. When I walk out my door, that's how the indigenous people, the original people of North America, look like. Now, does that mean that the Native American, if you notice, he calls himself the Native American. They don't call themselves indigenous. They call themselves Native Americans. But the light-skinned Native American is not a part of the indigenous family. Of course he's a part of the indigenous family. But we got to bear in mind, their grandfathers and great-grandfathers sold us out because they were tired of fighting. So we got to wake up, my people. We got to wake up. On that note, okay, I got time ticking down. You can always join me here on the Black Village every Sunday here at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can chime in. It doesn't cost you a dime. Just bear your conscious time to join me. 855-445-9340. You can also chime in at 857-232-0155. And don't forget the conference key to get to the conference dough, which is 947595. So this podcast is all about us waking up. We have to wake up and research and study for ourselves. We got to stop allowing everybody to teach us but us. We're not teaching ourselves. We're allowing everybody, and when I say everybody, I'm talking about not just the government, even religion, from all the different branches of Christendom to Islam and Judaism and Buddhism. We're allowing everything to teach us about us, or not teach us about us, but us. We're not looking for truth. We're thinking we're looking for truth, but we're actually being followers. We're following other people, other things, other paths. We're not looking to us. And you know, the sad thing about it is that most of us have forgotten the history of our grandparents. That's the beginning right there. That's where you can start right there. Most of us have forgotten the histories of our grandparents and our great-grandparents. That's where we start at. That's who was before we became. They were already here. And they know more than what we know. And in some cases, sometimes grandparents have forgotten. But you know what? They can give you something to begin and start your search on. And that's what we need to make. We need to make family important again, family. We've forgotten family. Family have forgotten family. And as a result, most young people today don't know what family is all about. And I'm going to tell you something. The indigenous people, the Native people, the Native American people, our people, Indian people, those who were called Indians, they knew what family was. They knew what family was all about. And the woman was the centerpiece of family. She was the master teacher to the family. And we have to bring that back. Just like in the African culture. In the African culture, family is everything. Family is the centerpiece. You feel me? And that's what we need to roll back ourselves back into the principles of what our ancestors, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and our great-grandparents, what their cultural connection was, and you'll find out what family is and what family should be. And that's what we need to bring back into the black community. So on that note, before I head out, anybody got any questions about anything I said so far, what you've heard, please comment if you have anything to comment on. Okay. And if you don't, on that note, I'm going to continue to play this right here by Brother Umar. Before I go off the air, I'm going to play one more. I believe this is the one I want to play right here. Let me see.
So are you saying that color first, then religion, nationality, and then the rest?
Not color, because color is a superficial characteristic. Color is nothing more than a symbol of culture and history and biological connectivity. So we would say African family first. Not all Africans have an obvious African look. Most of us do. You can generally tell who is and is not a direct descendant of the original inhabitants of Nile Valley culture. But not all of us look obviously or phenotypically African. We have Africans who can look European and look like other races because we are the mothers and fathers of all other people. It's not uncommon to see some of us look like other people. But yes, most of us are phenotypically African, but not all of us. So it is the DNA that makes us African.
So it's African first and then the rest. But let me ask, in America, this doesn't include Black Americans who were born in this country. We're not a part of that stuff, right? Because we are Americans. But how?
No, sir.
But how is that?
No,
I mean, for example, I was born in America, down in Alabama, and I'm 100% American. So I wouldn't be a part of this African stuff, right?
No, that's totally incorrect. Pan-Africanism as a philosophy was actually born in the Western Hemisphere. Pan-Africanism came from the Americas. It came from the Caribbean and went to Africa. So believe it or not, ironically, it was created by quote-unquote American Africans. And so when we talk about Pan-Africanism, as I said earlier in the definition, it includes all African people, wherever we may live. That's the entire purpose of the philosophy.
You heard it, folks. He said it wasn't about your color, but then he turned around and say, white people can't join the group. He says it's not about the color, but then he says it's about the DNA. So then he says, even though Africans are the fathers and mothers of humanity, you know, they predominantly looking for African people. So basically, Africans are the fathers and the mothers of the Chinese, white people, the Mongolians, the Koreans, no matter where you from, Spaniards, they're the fathers of humanity. So, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to get an Asian person from China or Japan, Mongolia or Korea or Vietnamese who are embedded in their culture. They are not going to embrace African identity because they look at themselves from exactly who they are, not just genetically, but culturally. Vietnamese, Japanese, Chinese, even Mexicans. And the Mexican people are a result of the Spanish and French War. Prior to the Spanish and French War, there wasn't a Mexican on this planet. Mexico did not even exist as a country. Mexico did not exist until after, and they are a result of the Spanish and French War. As a result of that war, we got a whole new breed of people called Mexicans, and who've created a whole new culture in their own country called Mexico. So culture is important. And this is what Pan-Africanism is doing to black people in America. It's disconnecting us from our culture and our identity, which is rooted here in North America. I was born here in America. My mama was born here in America. My daddy was born here in America. My grandmama was born here in America. My granddaddy was born here in America. And I'm talking about on my mama's side and my daddy's side. And my great-grandmama, whom I saw, knew, touched, talked to before she passed, when she was almost 90 years old, my great-grandmama, born right here in America, from Shreveport, Louisiana. And my great-great-grandmama, who was a Cherokee Indian black woman on the plantation. On the plantation. So how can you tell black folks who know that they're rooted in this country, who are rooted in this country, not just legally, but genetically are rooted in this country, because of the transatlantic slave trade, and because they want to say millions of Africans came to America when millions of Africans did not come to North America? Do your research, people. Do your research. I'm going to say it again. There is no proof, no historical proof, no researched proof that millions of Africans came to North America. I'm going to tell you right now, not even 500,000 Africans came to North America. Not even 500,000 Africans. Less than 500,000. 500,000 is 500,000. And I'm going to tell you right now, less than 500,000, less than 400,000 Africans came to North America. But let me tell you how many indigenous black Native Americans were enslaved in North America and across the Americas. Over 10 million. Over 10 million. Do your research, people. Do your research. And if I'm wrong, come on my show. Won't cost you a dime. Just a bit of your time. Share your information. Not a debate, not an argument. Share your information. Over 10 million indigenous Native Americans to North America were enslaved. And over 500 Indian nations were in this country at one time. Over, not tribes, I said nations. Over 500 indigenous nations. People, do your research. So on that note, I'm not going to spend too much time. I got to go. My show is over at 4 from 3 to 4. I will be back. I will be black, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut. I also made a statement earlier in the show about a group of black folks that have been getting together ever since the ever since the late 1800s. But it's documented that starting with the Pan-African Congress from 1900 to 1945, black intellectuals getting together, not just discussing Africa, but discussing black people in America. Let me read this article. It says, in nearly half a century between 1900 and 1945, various political leaders and intellectuals from Europe, North America, and Africa met 6 times to discuss colonial control of Africa and develop strategies to eventual African political liberation. In the article that follows, historians Shahid Ajumobi describes the goals and objections of the 6th Pan-African Congress and assists their impact on Africa. Now check this out. Pan-African ideals emerged in the late 19th century in response to European colonization and exploitation of the African continent. Pan-African philosophy held that slavery and colonialism depended on and encouraged negative, unfounded categorizations of the race, culture, values, and African people. These destructive beliefs, in turn, gave birth to the intensified forms of racism and likes of which Pan-Africanism sought to eliminate. As a broader political concept, Pan-Africanism's roots lie in the collective experiences of African descendants in the New World, telling you where it began. Again, here we go. I'm going to read that sentence again. As a broader political concept, Pan-Africanism roots lie in the collective experiences of African descendants in the New World. Africa assumed greater significance for some blacks in the New World for two primary reasons. First, the increasing futility of their campaign for racial equality in the United States led to some African Americans to demand voluntary reparations to Africa. Excuse me. Next, for the first time, the term Africans, which had often been used by racists as derogatory descriptions, became a source of pride for early black nationalists. Hence, through the conscious elevation of their African identity, black activists in America and the rest of the world began to reclaim the rights previously denied them by the Western societies. Again, this is them banding together. Now, the last part of this article, it says, in 1897, Henry Sylvester Williams, a West Indian Burmester, formed the African Association in London, in England, to encourage Pan-African unity, especially throughout the British colonies. Sylvester Williams, who had links with West African dignitaries, believed that Africans and those of African descent living in the diaspora needed a forum to address the common problems in the 1900s. In the 1900s, Sylvester Williams organized the first Pan-African meeting in collaboration with several black leaders representing various countries of the African diaspora. For the first time, opponents of colonialism attracted global attention, placing the word Pan-African in the lexicon of the international affairs and making it part of the standard vocabulary of black intellectuals. So there you go. And if you read this article, it talks about those who was connected to it: W.E.B. Du Bois, Christian leaders, Ethiopia, Liberia, Haiti, how all of them was connected to this Pan-African agenda. So again, people, I want to make the statement: while Africa is making its stance and have been making its stance and compromising and whoop over throughout the years, what about indigenous black people? What about our true identity? What about our connection to this country and how the white man has created a divide going all the way to slavery, created a divide, disconnecting us from our homeland here in North America, calling us something else as if we have no connection to this country. We have more connection to this country and the people who are connected to this country, our descendants, our ancestors, we being their descendants, our ancestors. We have more connection to America, to the soil of America, to the people of America. And I'm talking about the indigenous people, the original people. Ain't nowhere in the world you're Cherokee or you're Choctaw or you're Yamasee or you're Yuchi or you're Apache or Comanche. There's nowhere in the world that that your grandmother, and your mother were Native American. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you look black, and so you might have some African in you, so now you're African. That sounds absurd. So we got to wake up, people. And on that note, I got to go. And, as always, I will be back. I will be black, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut here on the Black Village Community Podcast every Sunday from 3 to 4 Pacific Standard Time. You can join me here at the Black Village. So I gotta go. Time is running out. And so anybody have anything to say, please say it before I close the doors here on the in the conference room. Nephew, you got something you want to say? Brother Curvin?
Thank you for the information. It was very informative. Amount of time I look up these some of the guys they're talking about, like Edward and Martin and the other guys.
Hey, well, I appreciate you joining me, nephew. I appreciate you joining me. I appreciate you listening in. So I'm assuming Brother Currency got nothing to say. So on that note, I gotta go. I'm already a little past my time. I will be back. I will be black. Next Delicious Black Sunday, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut here on the Black Village Community Podcast. And on that note, as always, may the great mother, the great spirit mother that creates all and continues to create, may she bring us together in the spirit of her love and truth and unify us as a people under her. And on that note, I gotta go. And as always, I love chicken, so love, peace, and chicken grease. I gotta go. I'm outie.
We are the Halusa Nation. Our DNA is of earth and sky. Confronted by the ally nation, alien nation, the subjects and the citizens see the material religions through trauma and numb. Nothing is related. All the things of the earth and in the sky have energy to be exploited. Even themselves, mining their spirits into souls sold. Into nothing is sacred, not even their self. The ally nation, alien nation.
Emergency on planet Earth. The currency is murder, you a man of worth. They say the day is coming, drumming that you can't reverse. Watch the banner burn before the cannon burst. Don't chase an illusion, the nation halusa. Hallelujah, taste of the future, the people, the shower, the pistol, the coward, the face of the shoot ya. Lonely martyrs, magic carpets, dirty blankets, Coca-Cola, soul controller, holy waters. Middle East mode, sand glorious. Cheat code in Babylonian, the Orient. My superhero got the people power. Yasin and Yasin, you should heed the hour.
With you and living kings, I mean it, I mean. I mean it, I mean. Yasin and Yasin in the R.E.B. I mean it, I mean. Original nation with one solid, I mean. I mean it, I mean. Straight jacket, come clean, Yasin and Yasin in the R.E.B. Original nation with one solid, with true and living.